So now we're going to move on to step number 17. And so basically what we're going to do, we're going to draft the rib trim around the neckline. I know before we started this project, I just kind of showed you guys that it's actually going to be a rectangle, but now that I'm redoing this again, I haven't done this in a while, it's actually set up to draft it so that it's the shape of her neckline, not a rectangle. So when we sew it together, it's actually not going to be a shorter rib. It's going to be the exact same amount of fabric that is used around the neckline. And, maybe in real life you would just have a rectangle and, use that as your rib trim. But I think it's good that we're going to draft it as a circular shape that fits her neckline perfectly, because it's going to introduce you to a new tool. And that's really the point of this assignment, is to have an opportunity to play with a ton of tools to get you a little bit more familiar using the software and to see what it can do. So what we're going to do, we're going to select the front neckline and the back. So letter Z, keyboard shortcut, edit pattern tool. And you can select, I'm going to hold shift to select the segments that I need. I guess I should pan. Oh dear. Undo. Oh, okay. Let me undo it anyways. Okay. There we go. Try again. Holding shift to get this. And then I'm going to right click, and we can offset as an internal line, but we don't want to do that. We want to offset our pattern outline, because the way we drafted it, our point of measurements was taking the neck opening from seam to seam. So this trim is going to be like inside of that. So we will use offset pattern outline to bring it up, I guess. Okay, and we're going to make the trim just 1 inch. You want to make sure you have the create internal line selected, and what it's going to do, it's going to change your pattern outline to be an internal line, which is just handy to have a working internal line. The more you use internal lines, the more comfortable you'll get with them, and they'll make more sense. But so for now, just make sure that box is checked so you do have an internal line. 1 offset's enough. 1 inch. Yes, we want it extended out, right? We don't want to retract it. We want it to go out of our shape. Okay, I'm going to say okay. Cool. So this is still like 1 pattern piece. It's not 2 pattern pieces. So we need to disconnect it is the next thing. Basically need to cut it and sew it. So that brings us to step number 18. We can take our letter Z. We can click that internal lines. Okay, and again, because they're connected with symmetrical sewing, I only have to do 1 of the pieces and automatically copies the other one. Now, what you're going to want to do, and you will actually do this trick a ton, you're going to right click it and you're going to say cut and sew. Now we could just cut and go in and manually sew it together, but they have the tool to like automatically sew it together as well. So this is really handy. So cut and sew. So there we go. Oh, it looks like we do it separate. So if we go to the back, I'm going to hit the sewing tool. See how it has like the sewing stitches for us already? Okay, so now I have to do the same to the front. I tried doing them at the same time. It didn't quite work. Make sure is it actually selected. Click. Hold shift, click. Oops. Okay, right click. Uh-oh. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Okay, let's try this one more time. There we go. Okay, I don't know. I held shift and now they're both selected. So now I can right click and, oh, let's try that again. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm only clicking on 1 this time. Okay, I was wasted a whole bunch of time holding shift. I only had to select 1 of it and it knew to cut it. So, okay, good learning lesson. Um, okay, cool. So now those are sewn together already. I don't have to use my sewing tool to sew them together, so that's good. But I do need to sew the back and the side seams of this new neck trim I just made. So, okay. So I'll just use the segment sewing tool. I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna have the tab, maybe I'll have the tab point towards the neckline. There it goes, and then this back, I'll have it point this time, not towards the neckline. Okay, and it copied the other side, so I didn't have to do both sides. Okay, so he is now sewn together, and we are ready to simulate. That's the end of step 19. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna move, I'm gonna unsimulate, and we're gonna move on to 20, and it wants us to use a new tool. It's the Smooth Curve tool, and it's gonna help us round out our center front edges of the neck trim. So you can find this guy hidden, stacked in this little cluster of the Edit Pattern tool, and it's Smooth Curve. Doesn't look like it has a keyboard shortcut. And it's pretty easy to use. So I'm just gonna click on this point. I like how it has the instructions too. If you ever aren't sure how to use it, you can read right underneath the cursor. So I'm just gonna click this point. I'm gonna pull down. You can see how it's reshaping it. So you could stop it just wherever you think looks nice. There we go, and it curved it. Now, do you see this white stuff? Like, why isn't the white going all the way to the yellow? That's because of our particle distance, and I don't know if it's a good idea to talk about it right now, but students always ask me about it. They're like, it's not smooth. This is something you'll be more familiar with and understand the more you use the software, but 3D software programs, they work in a mesh, and the mesh can be made, I think in this case, it's made of triangular shapes, and it's a particle distance means the triangle shapes are like smaller or bigger depending to what you have it set to. So like right now, if this like shape really bugs us, you know, because we're trying to design a smooth curve, we can change our particle distance to be smaller. And this is something we do at the end of the project. We increase the particle distance, but while we're designing, it's nice to have it lower because it doesn't use as much memory and your computer can operate a lot faster. But if it's just one teeny little pattern piece, it's actually not that big of a deal to change the particle distance to be smaller. So you can find it in the property editor, make sure the piece is selected. And it's here somewhere. I always go fast and miss it. Ah, I see it. So it defaults at 20 to start with. Let's change it to 5. Okay. Right away, you're gonna see a change. See that? So now the white goes all the way in. And I know there's a view to look at the mesh. I don't do it very often, so I kind of forget. It might be like one of these. Oh, here we go, mesh. So do you see how there's big triangles on her bodice, and then now the triangles are really small? Because the particle distance being made smaller. So if you ever want to see what's going on with that, you can. And again, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's totally fine. It will make sense later in the semester as you get more practice with the software. So, okay. So anyways, if it's okay if you don't change your particle distance, I just wanted to talk about it because I know people are going to ask me about it. Okay, so we just did number 20. Now we're going to move to 21 where we're going to shape the side seam with the Edit Curvature tool. So if we look at her side seam of the rib neck, I'm going to hover over here. You just want to make sure it's like smooth. I actually don't really think it's that bad, but what do I know? So you can use, they're suggesting the Edit Curvature tool. So there's like smooth curve, curve point. They think this one, letter C. I mean, I think what bugs me is this thing. So, but I think they just want to make sure it's smooth between front and back, and I kind of feel like it is. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's that bad. But anyways, you could play around with that if you like. This thing kind of bugs me. So I wonder if I could smooth that out. I'm going to try the Edit Curve point. That's for this one. What if I like delete it? Nope. I'm gonna hold D. I guess that cleaned it up a little bit. Let me look at the pattern. I could get that point, click on this point and right click and convert it to a curve point. And then if I wanted, then I could kind of play with the edit curvature without that point there. Sometimes that's good. I don't know, there's a lot of curve tools. I honestly still have yet to master them. So I would just encourage you to kind of play around with them. So yeah, sometimes what helps me is just picking the point and getting rid of it by saying convert to curve. Oops, trip. I mean, I love these handlebars, but I think there's just, let me see. Oh yeah, I guess that kind of works. That worked out. The handlebars in this case worked out. But sometimes I'll just right click it and just convert it to a curve, and then I can use my edit curvature to like control the whole curve. I don't know, you'll figure out what works best for you. I think everybody's a little bit different. Okay, I'm getting crazy. I need to stop. Okay, let's move on. Okay, cool. Well, that actually completes this video. We'll pick up the pockets in our next video.